With thousands of people forced from their homes across BC, one of the big questions is how these fires are spreading so quickly. To help us understand that, let's bring in Mathieu Bourbonnais. He's an assistant professor at UBC Okanagan and co-director of the Centre for Wildfire Coexistence. He's also a former wildland firefighter. Thank you very much for joining us. Mathieu, when you look at the fires burning in BC right now, what stands out to you about their behavior?
I think especially with the Summerland fire and some of the ones we've seen in the past weeks, it's the aggressive fire behavior that we're seeing. You know, a fire going from detection to a few thousand hectares in size and obviously getting into community that fast not only poses a real threat to people in those communities, but also to firefighters themselves and first responders who need to deal with this. And so I think it just speaks to really the incredibly dry conditions that we have across a lot of our forests here in the Okanagan and in the southern interior of BC, and dealing with kind of this persistent and almost historic drought that we have. So, you know, the forests in our landscapes are really primed to burn right now, and with the weather that we're having and no kind of respite in the forecast, it's likely that we're going to see additional aggressive fire behavior in kind of the weeks to come.
We've talked a lot about the thousands of people who have been displaced, but more than 10,000 people are under evacuation alerts in BC, so they're preparing for a possible evacuation. Can you tell us how quickly a fire situation like this one can turn? How exceptional was the Summerland fire in that case?
I think, you know, we've seen conditions like this over the last number of years in BC. I mean, McDougall Creek in Kelowna just, you know, in 2023, and even the Bradley Creek wildfire in the North Okanagan a couple of weeks ago went from, you know, not a lot to people having to leave in a real big hurry. So I think it speaks to, again, just how dry things are and the conditions that we have. And it also really reinforces that, you know, if you're on an evacuation alert, and even if you aren't, and you live in one of these communities, the importance of having that go bag ready and really paying attention to, you know, what emergency management is telling you and being ready to leave at a moment's notice, because things are very volatile right now.
But how, I mean, I guess from the outside looking in, when we see how fast the Summerland fire went from, you know, people sort of seeing in the horizon and next things they're fleeing their homes. How unusual, how surprised should we be by how quickly that fire turned?
That's really, I mean, that's as extreme fire behavior as you'll see and as aggressive fire behavior. You know, the talk of Ring 5, Ring 6 fire, which sounds sort of ambiguous, means, you know, you have a crown fire with flames that are, you know, dozens or hundreds of meters high. And in that case, you know, there was spotting where actually the fire is sending embers and large chunks of debris ahead of the fire, which is starting new fires. So, you know, that's incredibly aggressive. That's as aggressive fire behavior as you'll see. And when we're in conditions like that, you know, fires aren't moving meters per minute. They're moving dozens of meters per minute. So it really does speak to, again, like just how dry conditions are and, you know, when we get new fires, what we might be able to expect.
Well, and now we have the BC Wildfire Service warning people about the impact of dry lightning. What makes that so dangerous?
Yeah, so with dry lightning, I mean, when a thunderstorm normally comes through, what we're used to is you get some lightning and you get some rain with it. And in that case, you know, even if that lightning strike does cause a fire, the rain can kind of moderate its effects or sometimes actually just put it out. With dry lightning, it means that we're getting lightning without that rain. And so right now, with the number of fires that we're having and the number of resources that we have committed to fires across the province, dry lightning that can cause new sparks can, you know, pull resources away from existing fires to respond to another fire. I mean, we have one above Kelowna right now that just started. And so it really just like perpetuates the issue. It causes new sparks, and with the conditions that we have, you know, maybe we can get to it in time, or maybe it becomes another fire that's an issue.
And what does it mean when we're talking about this aggressive movement of fires? Perhaps at the most it can be when we were talking about the Summerland fire, but even with the others that are all out of control, what does that mean for the crews trying to actually contain it?
Yeah, when you're seeing this type of fire behavior, when you're talking about firefighters, we talk about like initial attack and direct attack, where firefighters are actually on the fire line directly, trying to suppress the fire. When you're seeing this kind of fire behavior, you can't put firefighters in front of that. And so, oftentimes you have to move to different kind of tactics like indirect attack, where they're using more aircraft and air tankers to kind of try to corral it. And then you're dealing with hot spots around the perimeters, or even, doing operations ahead of the fire to try to kind of keep it contained. At that point, you're really just managing the fire. You're trying to keep something that has a lot of energy and a lot of momentum kind of in an area as best you can. So the risk to firefighters goes up. And I think that's why it's really important for people to consider, the stress that they're dealing with and the conditions that they're dealing with. It's hot and smoky for us also, but it's even worse for them. So, not causing new fires and just supporting fire crews as best we can moving forward.
Appreciate your time and your expertise today. Thank you so much. That was
Thanks,
Mathieu
Sharon.
Bourbonnais, co-director of the Center for Wildlife Coexistence.